Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are the Athletics' Carl Anker and Martin Hardy from the Times. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run everyone through the back pages, shall we? The front of the Telegraph says West Ham on brink of civil war. For the back of the Guardian, FA criticised over errors in Paqueta spot fixing case. Back of the Eye, Loftus-Cheek, I'll play anywhere. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, of course, and FA will not appeal decision to clear Paqueta of spot fixing. Back of the Mirror, back from the Jed Spence. Salah clash with Cop fans. Express says Jed decks Ant, Angry Mo backs Diaz and Nunez. As for the Star, this is Anfield for King and Conte. Back of the Metro, show some respect and refreshed Three Lions out to shake off June bug. And finally, the Telegraph. It was about Gary O'Neill. Since leaving Wolves, I have watched every Premier League game. Okay, we are going to start with the back of the Guardian. We're going to talk Lucas Paqueta and Carl. Cleared, and he is now thinking of suing. What can you tell us about this story?
We've seen is the release of a 314-page document regarding the situation between Paqueta and what the FA initially believed was spot betting. This report looks into how the FA came to their conclusions and how they chose to sanction Paqueta. And it appears the FA's case, or the reason why it fell apart, shall we say, is it doesn't appear that Paqueta was feeding information to individuals in Brazil in order to bet on his games. What is more likely to happen, or more likely has happened, is what Paqueta claimed, which is he rings his mother every single day. And like many mothers do when they go about their day and they're asked, how is your son doing? She told people in her life, or those who came into her shop, about Paqueta's mood at work. And people then use that information to make bets, rather than it being actual spot betting of I'm going to go and get booked in the 35th, 45th minute or whatsoever. It appears as if the FA did not have a star witness in order to go ahead with their case. And it feels like Paqueta has been prevented a move to Manchester City, and West Ham have been prevented from getting a transfer fee for Paqueta. And the player and the club have reason to be aggrieved.
Martin, what's your take on this? Because the kind of allegations when a player gets accused of this kind of thing, I mean, it's the kind of thing that sticks with a player, isn't it? And he's been cleared. We must stress that, cleared. And you can understand why he might be thinking about suing the FA.
Today's revelation from the panels, the release of the report is quite extraordinary. There's some great reporting in my paper, The Times, as usual, from Martin Ziegler and Matt Lawton. I'll come to some of the detail in a moment. The harsh reality, I think it was an exclusive story we did, is that Lucas Paqueta and West Ham are considering legal action against the FA, and that could run to tens of millions of pounds, because the deal to take him to Manchester City, as was revealed during the hearing, was very, very close when all this broke. And as soon as it did, that potential move to Manchester City fell down. You therefore have a sliding doors moment for his career, and you have a sliding doors moment in terms of the revenue West Ham could have brought into the club. And probably a speculative figure at that time would have been 50 to 60 million pounds for the player, and the kind of the PSR relief that it would have given to West Ham. I'm sure we're going to come to them in a moment. One of the small details of this that's revealed was that Paqueta was very close to going to Manchester City, and Cole Palmer was very close to signing for West Ham. One deal fell down, the other one fell down. Inside this, the detail of the statement is certain weaknesses from the FA's case that were flagged up in the report. Paqueta had not answered questions the first time he'd been investigated on the advice of his legal counsel. The second time he was interviewed by the FA, he wanted to answer the questions, but they wouldn't ask him that time. The FA's barrister, I think, said it disagreed with its own betting expert that the betting was hugely orchestrated. And inside of there is a massive pile of evidence from David Moyes that was given now as the Everton manager. There are 4 kind of cases of yellow cards that were queried. Moyes' evidence was, we signed a number 10 who was Brazilian. We didn't think we thought it was all about flair and tricks and skill and incisive play. We didn't expect him to become a number 8, but because he was so good and the way the English game is, we asked that of him. And some of the tackles that he made were those of a forward player trying to do his best for the team. The detail of the Bournemouth allegation, unless the FA think there's some kind of Jedi mind tricks going on here, Paqueta was on the pitch, and the allegation was that he looked at the substitutes warming up, realised he was about to be substituted, knew who the player that was going to be replacing was, and then deliberately did a foul to ensure he got a yellow card just before he got taken off. Now, David Moyes in his evidence said that would have been incredible because I didn't know I was going to take him off, and I didn't know who I would have replaced him with. So for Paqueta to have for that allegation to be made against Paqueta is incredible. This report is a really, really bad day for the FA, who have had the problems with the Nottingham Forest here in recent years as well. The report, and as Carl said, it's a huge report. I think it could be one of the largest ever done in a sporting allegation. Clears Lucas Paqueta of anything at all in this, even the fact that some of his WhatsApp messages were deleted because he had that facility on his phone in action at that time. And as I said, the ruling reveals that the FA admitted it relied entirely on circumstantial evidence. And as I said, the panel was most surprised to hear that. This does not feel like a good day for the FA, and I would suspect we have not heard the last of this.
OK, we are going to move on, but we should say that Sky Sports News has approached the FA for comment. They're yet to get back to us. So we're going to move on. We're actually going to stay with West Ham, Carl, the front of the Telegraph. West Ham on the brink of civil war. Tell us about this one.
Yes, well, it seems as if West Ham's biggest fan group has given their version of a vote of no confidence towards the West Ham ownership. It's been a frustrating transfer window if you're a West Ham fan. I think it's quite obvious that this is Graham Potter's squad is devoid of pace and the midfielders of the necessary intensity and running power needed to remain in the Premier League's middle class. And this statement from West Ham's fan group cites the downturn in performance since their Conference League victory 2 seasons ago and the sale of Declan Rice. It is, to my mind, a very fair airing of grievances from the fan base.
Yeah, Matt Law's piece, Martin, talks about the London Stadium being a real kind of source of discontent, the atmosphere there. Do you think this is part of it, that move from Upton Park, the Blinn Stadium, to the London Stadium? It hasn't quite worked, and ever since then there's been a bit of a disconnect between the board and the fans.
If you want to take a football club with the history of West Ham away from its home, sell its home and move it to a stadium that is not theirs, to justify such a monumental chapter in a club's history, you have to make a successful football club. You have to have a good first team. You have to have a plan. Your recruitment has to be better than West Ham have shown over the last 12, 18 months. And to me, from the outside on this, I'm still stunned. West Ham fans weren't more up in arms. They played a stadium, not a football stadium. They don't have a home. So when things are going wrong, you're going to feel real discontent amongst the supporters. There are talks in that story about demonstrations at the ground. Hammers United, I think, saying they're asking, which you just do not see happen, saying they want Brady and Sullivan to resign from their executive positions. They have changed manager repeatedly. You're not quite sure what the long-term strategy is. They got a good win against Nottingham Forest at the weekend, which they really, really needed. But I was their first game of the season when they played Sunderland, and they were awful. And you thought, where has the money gone that you've invested? How are you relying on old English players that couldn't get a game in other teams last season? this doesn't feel like a surprise to me. It feels like a surprise to me that it hasn't come sooner.
Okay, good stuff on that one. We're going to move to the back of the Star. Interesting story coming out of Anfield. This is Anfield. This is Mo Salah saying, show some respect to the players Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez, because the Liverpool fans' social media account said a huge upgrade, Carl, that they've had with Florian Wirtz coming in. And just talk us through this one, because Alexander Isak, of course, as well. Upgrade on Diaz and Núñez. What have you made of this?
Yes, so it appears that one of the larger Liverpool fan pages on Twitter said that the purchasing of Wirtz and Isak, the new 7 and 9 respectively, are one of the biggest upgrades in football history, to which Mohamed Salah quote tweeted it and said, how about we show some respect to the reigning Premier League champions? So Luis Diaz, who's gone to Bayern Munich, and Darwin Núñez, who's gone to Saudi Arabia, are, at least to Mohamed Salah's mind, still Liverpool champions and shouldn't be disrespected by the fan base. Mohamed Salah's been quite vocal on social media this year, as I think is his right. He is the reigning PFA Player of the Year, and he's decided to be more vocal, not just on how he feels about football, but also how he feels about certain things around the world as well. So what you've got here is a football player who wields a large amount of soft power, using his voice to protect his friends and try and get the current Liverpool fan base to understand all things in time. And every Liverpool player who's done well is a player worthy of respect. Yeah,
I mean, fair play to Salah for sticking up for his former teammates, I guess, Martin. But we also see the power of social media here, both ways, don't we? The fact that this fan account can make such a difference, can impact to such an extent that Mo Salah is saying what he's had to say, and then there's been a huge kind of reaction to what Salah's had to say.
Yeah, there's a curiosity to this story that I think before Liverpool played Newcastle in the league last season, Mo Salah did an interview with Steve McManaman where he talked about, was asked, can you win the Ballon d'Or? And he said, if Liverpool can win the Champions League, I can win the Ballon d'Or. You then fast forwarded a couple of weeks till Paris Saint-Germain with a visit at Anfield, and there was a video taken from the away end of Liverpool's players going through the penalty shootout, and Darwin Núñez, who, let's be fair, was a misfiring forward, full of industry, didn't justify the fee, did well in Portugal before he arrived, missed his penalty, and he walked back to the Liverpool players on the halfway line, and Virgil van Dijk was the first to give him a hand slap and give him a hug, and every Liverpool player came over to Darwin Núñez except one, and that was Mo Salah, who stood on the side of the group. You can only speculate how annoyed or upset he was at the fact that that miss was one of the two elements that cost Liverpool going deeper into the Champions League. What I don't think you can argue with you. Look, there's so much on Twitter now that's very difficult to comprehend, and it just seems to be a more boisterous place full of people fighting each other by the day. But the Anfield edition suggesting that this is an upgrade from Núñez and Diaz to Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz is undeniable, and that's why Liverpool have paid the best part of £250 million for the two of them, because it is an upgrade, and is an upgrade to, ironically, try and achieve the aims of Mo Salah and win the Champions League. You go and ask any football fan, do Liverpool have a better chance of winning the Champions League with Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz than they did with Núñez and Diaz? And most people, so I would say 95+% of people would say yes. So on this one, it didn't even feel that controversial a moment from Anfield edition. They have subsequently offered kind of a form of apology to Mo Salah, but on this one, I think they were right.
Yeah, I guess they were right, but it's in the biggest upgrade in football in history. It does have kind of implications of disrespect, doesn't it? We're going to leave that one there for just a second. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning papers, including this in the Telegraph: players using AI to craft heartfelt farewells. Martin Hardy from The Times. All right, we're going to go to the back of the eye. We're going to talk all things England, starting with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Carl, who says, I'll play anywhere. I guess we kind of like these back from the wilderness kind of stories because he was pretty regular for England, wasn't he, until his injury. Then it didn't quite work out for him at Chelsea. But Thomas Tuchel knows all about him, likes his versatility and physicality, and he's back in.
He is back in for the first time in, I want to say, 6 years into the England setup. And yes, Ruben Loftus-Cheek telling Thomas Tuchel that he can play anywhere. We know that. I've seen Thomas Tuchel use Loftus-Cheek at right wing back on more than one occasion. I think one of the more hotly contested roles for this England squad going into the World Cup is the midfield person next to Declan Rice. This is a role that in the Euros, we saw Conor Gallagher play there, Trent Alexander-Arnold play there before Mainu of Manchester United took the role and was the starter in that position at the Euros final. I think Loftus-Cheek is another option in that sort of box-to-box role next to Declan Rice. And I'm not too surprised that Thomas Tuchel has gone back to one of his former Chelsea charges to see if he's up for the job. I think Loftus-Cheek is a phenomenal football player. Yes, as you've already outlined, he did have to reorientate his career after that Achilles injury, where I think he lost some explosive pace, but he's put together some very sparkling performances during his time at AC Milan, and of course he's won Serie A there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Martin, isn't it? Because those ties with former managers, I mean, Thomas Tuchel has obviously worked with him day in, day out when he was his Chelsea manager and liked that, obviously something about him, the physicality, the versatility, as I mentioned. But I think AC Milan did struggle last year, I think. They were 8th in Serie A, and it wasn't an obvious choice. He started this season pretty well. But, what do you make of this selection?
You always think a manager who comes in to the national team will try and show everybody something that we should have noticed, but we didn't. And in fairness, he's given Dan Burn a call up for an extraordinary couple of seasons at Newcastle, and he's brought Ruben Loftus-Cheek out of the wilderness. I think, as Carl said, nearly 7 years. And the nice quotes from the play, he said he'd completely forgotten about playing for England. He was just a fan during events. He's gone through all these injuries. And as Carl says, there are problems in that midfield area that Gareth Southgate was trying to solve towards the end of his time. And this is an option. There is versatility with the player as well, which I think Thomas Tuchel will like. Is he top notch in terms of trying to win major events for a nation? Possibly not, I would say. But he's got a chance now to show that he can become an important part of this squad. And there is always a player that surprises people, and we go back to England reaching finals, and Calvin Phillips is now written off, but he was very good for Gareth Southgate in England. So yeah, perhaps there can be a player like Loftus-Cheek who surprises everybody.
OK, staying with England, we're going to go to the back of the mirror. Back from the Jed, Carl, Jed Spence, who went to Tottenham from Nottingham Forest, having helped them get promoted. And it never seemed to quite happen from him. So Antonio Conte didn't fancy him, loaned him out. But he was good back end of last season. And, Europa League victory and everything. And now he's in the England squad.
Now he is in the England squad. He seems reborn in this new role as a fullback, and I was especially impressed with his performance for Thomas Frank's Tottenham in the Super Cup right at the start of this season, where he not only was very, very good in stopping PSG from mobilising their attack down the flank, but he was constantly calling for the ball in behind Hakimi, which there are not many football players in Europe who back themselves to beat Hakimi in a foot race, but Jed Spence wanted it. It's good that his career is on the way back up again. I'm not too surprised that he's also using this time to have a little bit of nibble at Antonio Conte, because we do know Jed Spence doesn't mind having a nibble at former managers of his as well. So I wish him all the best. I think he's set for having a really, really good season with a Tottenham Hotspur team that has some really promising counter-attacking threats. So Jed Spence will be important to that team both ways, I think, to help that team launch counter-attacks and to also make sure when they do get caught, making sure the door's locked as well.
OK, the Telegraph, Martin, has got a nice piece on Gary O'Neill. Since leaving Wolves, I've watched every Premier League game. I mean, it's an interesting, it shows how quickly football can change and turn, isn't it? I mean, when he was one of England's most promising managers. He was being linked with bigger jobs while he was at Wolves. He came into the Sky studios and was a fantastic pundit and got some good kudos for that. Then suddenly sacked from Wolves and now he's out of work.
Yeah, it's a really hard game, and I'm sure at some point you've been talking about players seeking to advance their careers because it can go in the opposite direction very, very quickly. That mood can turn. Gary O'Neill was doing very, very well at Bournemouth, and Bournemouth had spotted a manager that they liked called Andoni Areola, and people at the time said this is a really hard decision from an unfair decision from Bournemouth. And the people that said that have quietly disappeared because they realised they've got a very, very good manager. To Gary O'Neill's credit, he was really good that night on Sky TV with Jamie Carragher, which he references in the interview. I think it's with Jason Burt. He came across as a really good tactician, went to Wolves and initially did really, really well. The problem he has is, I think the way that ended was perceived criticism of his players, and he talked about the need to get the transfer window. That wasn't ideal, probably symptomatic of the pressure that he was under. And then he had players at the end of games. I think there was one at West Ham just out of control. The same happened at a home game. In the next game, I think a steward got hit. So unfortunately for Gary, who has come across, whenever I've seen him as a student of the game, that lasting impression may be working against him for the time being. But I'm sure we are in September. You're going to see a lot of managerial movement in the top two divisions, and I would suspect a club in either the Premier League or the Championship could do a lot worse than turn to Gary O'Neill and kind of resurrect his career, if for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, well said. Staying with the Telegraph, newsflash, players using AI to craft heartfelt farewells, Carl. It's the first I've seen of this little headline. Explain this one to us.
Yes, well, it appears that Fabio Silva's Instagram message to Wolverhampton Wanderers fans, apologising for his so-so career at Wolves and wishing them the best for the future. Apparently, it bears some similarities to another football player's leaving message to another club, Uche, and he's been caught red-handed. Well, the gentlemen have been caught red-handed, and there's been accusations that both players have been caught using ChatGPT and simply swapped the club's involvement. Look, this is not the first time a football player has been caught copy-pasting a previous leaving message. There are some Everton fans who may remember Samuel Eto'o's leaving message once he left the club, and how he pretty much used the exact same wording when he left Sampdoria, and he just changed Everton to Sampdoria after he left that club as well. So,
Carl, we're going to have to leave it there. There'll be students up and down the land who have done exactly the same thing and got caught out in their homework. Thanks to Martin, thanks to Carl. If you've missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour, and the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us again on Thursday night when our guests will be James Ollie from ESPN and broadcaster and journalist Emery Winter.